If you're looking for a new way to support the podcast, check out Dubby.gg, an energy supplement company trying to make a difference. There you can use code SIDEMISSION for 10% off your order. Thank you to Dubby for sponsoring this episode, and we hope you enjoy.
Welcome into the newest episode of Side Mission. I, like always, am your host, Rusty Ellis, joined by the boys, Kyle Lynch and Matt Beck. And today we are talking about episode 4 of season 2 of The Last of Us. And I can't remember if I said this last week or if I said this off the record. I wish they would have just called this The Last of Us Part 2, because that is a wordy intro that I'm having to say every single time. I wish they just called it The Last of Us Part 2. Nonetheless, we're talking about episode 4. And boys, there's good news. And listeners, there's good news. Because finally, we have an episode that I think all three of us enjoyed quite a bit. We enjoyed this episode. It was a really good episode. Probably the best one of the season thus far. I say probably. It was the best one of the season thus far. And there's a lot to be happy about. There are some things that we're going to get into and dive into a critical aspect on. But, Kyle, starting with you, because it was the first thing I said to you. Matt, I believe it was the first thing I said when the episode finished. I think that Jeffrey Wright as Isaac is the best casting decision this show has made thus far. And Kyle, I was blown away by his performance. I thought he was awesome.
Yes, I said, I've liked him in pretty much everything I've seen him in. And, man, he was not in this episode a lot, but for the time that he was in this episode, damn, was he memorable. Honestly, I think he was probably the most memorable part of this episode because of the entire scene between him and the Scar, where he's torturing and interrogating him. Holy shit, dude. Absolute chills. And his line delivery when, he's getting fed up with him, and he's like, I'll burn every inch off of your body until you tell me. And then he turns around and it's just, the guy's just holding out his hand because he's like, I'd rather be burned than tell you. I mean, damn, dude, I was silent.
I do want to say I'm glad we all picked up on that, because I think there are a lot of people that might miss that, I'm not saying from a perspective of an interrogator, but when someone you're interrogating in a game is willing to just let you torture them, at that point, you've gotten all the information out of them you're going to get. And I'm glad that all three of us picked up on that, because Kyle, I said it last night, and I'll say it again here. I think that while I was supremely impressed with Jeffrey Wright in that scene, I was also improved. I can't find the actor that played the Seraphite. I was impressed with him as well. I thought he delivered really. That's the only scene he's going to be in the whole show, in all likelihood. And I thought he was really good in it. I was like, this is what a Seraphite would do. I love the line of, every day a wolf leaves you to join the Seraphites, and none of us ever leave to join the wolves. Like, I was like, that to me was like, whoo.
Yes.
Like, there were goosebumps. I loved that line delivery, and I was like, they're cooking. See, these writers have proven to me they know how to write these characters. They're just botching a few characters in particular that I'm not a fan of. But in this scene, Kyle, they cooked, I thought.
Absolutely.
No pun intended.
I mean, dude. I also liked how they showed that some of them aren't as strong-stomached. It's not a general consensus across, the entire group that what Isaac is doing is what needs to be done, because you could tell that one guy was really bothered by it.
Yes.
And the other guy was the complete opposite. He said he's getting what he deserves. I like that they are trying to show that it's not really it's not one agreed faction. That's why some of them leave the wolves to join the server. It's a very broken group.
Yes.
And, I'm very glad that they're portraying, even down to the individuals, hey, some of these things I don't like. It really redefines that whole line that you brought up, that, wolves leave to join the Seraphites. Maybe it's because some of the things that the wolves are doing they don't agree with, and that's how the Seraphites kind of get them in, Now, I will just go ahead and be the one to say it. I didn't need to see so much ball sack.
Yeah, I have very much. I've described this episode because my boss at work watches the show, and I told him like this was one of those episodes I probably wouldn't watch with my parents. Probably wouldn't watch it with them because there is a fair amount of nudity in that scene specifically, and it's kind of unexpected. Like it's hinted at in the game when you walk in on Isaac interrogating a Seraphite. It's hinted at that he absolutely castrated him. Like it's
Yes.
like that region of his body is very bloody, is very torn up. It's very clear that he castrated him. And here they kind of more or less just show it. And I don't have an issue with that. It was just so shocking because it does feel like the first 3 episodes were very heavily sterilized, and this one was finally the episode that took the kid gloves off and said, "Okay, let's remember where we're streaming this. We're on HBO. We're not limited to certain constraints that other streaming platforms are limited to." So I do appreciate them taking the kid gloves off. It was just a very sudden and almost shocking reveal because of how the first 3 episodes of this season have gone. Matt, staying on the topic of Isaac, I think what I loved the most was getting his backstory, because I don't remember in the game getting a ton of backstory on Isaac, but I remember it being mentioned, I feel like at one point, that he is an ex-Fedra, commander, or an ex-Fedra sergeant, and we see in the first scene of this episode that his turn against Fedra. And I will say, I've raved about the behind the scenes for the entirety of this season because I do feel like it provides a lot of context that otherwise you might not consider. I loved the idea that this was not Isaac in his mind betraying Fedra. He had already felt betrayed by Fedra. This was him doing what he felt was right in joining the WLF, joining the Wolves. And it's a really cool thing I liked about this was he allows one of them to live, and then, like Kyle alluded to, that soldier is then the one that when the Seraphite's being interrogated, he's like, he got what he deserved. He's a fucking animal. And they talk about it in the behind the scenes of, this is proof of how even an individual who feels like they are only here to do good, they can become corrupted by tribalism. They can be corrupted like that by a certain way of thinking, by a group way of thinking. And I thought that was really well done. I will say, Matt, as much as I loved Isaac, had to kind of get used to Josh Peck talking the way he did in his little cameo. Had to get used to that a little bit. That was a little weird. I will say, for those who don't know, me and Matt watched this episode together with a few other friends, and Matt pointed out that it was Josh Peck, and we were all like, dude, shut up. No, it's not. And then they went back, and they had a close-up on him, and we were like, holy shit, that is Josh Peck. So, Matt, you get a little bit of praise there for pointing that at first, but I felt like this scene, giving his backstory and joining the Wolves, I felt like this was a perfect place to start this episode.
Honestly, yeah. I mean, it's like what we said earlier. Jeffrey Wright didn't get a lot of screen time, but from what he did, he definitely demanded all the attention. And it's definitely his scenes are definitely the most memorable ones from this episode. Outside of a few things that people who've seen the games, who play the games, recognize. And I love the fact that because this isn't stuff that we got in the game, and that's what I like about media, getting a different form of entertainment from a game to a show, is we can explore these characters a little bit more and have more leeway to kind of give, backstory, like, what we got with Isaac. And I love how serious and how much of a hard ass he is just in the back of that van with all the rest of the Fedra soldiers. And I love the fact that, like we said, he did, have one go out there with him, knowing damn well that he was going to kill the rest of them. And you could just see it on his face. Like, he knew what the plan was. He knew what he was about to do. That's why he didn't care. They were all back there joking and, shooting the shit, having fun. He's just back there just like silent. He makes a comment here and there. But then that moment he walks out, and they meet the people outside, immediately he just turns around, and I'm just like, oh, he's actually going to do it. He's actually about to kill them. And he just throws a grenade back in there, and then they were gone. And I just think that scene started off so well just because of the fact that, so far throughout the show, with a few, things thrown here and there, we don't know what to expect from the show so far. We're already on episode 4, so we kind of already know how this is playing out. And just getting moments like that, especially with characters like Isaac, who we see at the games is he's a total monster, honestly. But I mean, everybody in this world to survive has to become, something that they didn't think they would ever be. I mean, I know for a fact that if I was in this world, I mean, I'd probably be dead or turned by now. But if I had survival instincts, I'd probably be more of an Isaac.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is spot on what you said. That we're getting an opportunity to flesh out a few more characters, and that's a good thing because Isaac is a major antagonist in the game. But when you really think about it, he's not in the game a ton. He's not there a ton. When he's on screen, he is menacing. But outside of that, you really only ever hear about him. So it's cool to actually see this portrayal of him. And again, Jeffrey Wright absolutely knocks it out of the park. So I'm excited to see more of him moving forward. The majority of the remainder of the episode focuses entirely on Dina and Ellie. And one thing that I kind of thought, and I'm interested to hear y'all's take on this, I felt like Dina stole this episode almost. I felt like Dina, and specifically Isabella Merced, I thought she was the other major highlight of this episode because so much of the episode is focused on her. Whether it be her looking around for meds and supplies early on. We obviously know that she finds a pregnancy test at some point in that first scene that they're in. It's them exploring Seattle. So, I think that if I'm interpreting it right, which I could be wrong, I think that it's implied that she had multiple pregnancy tests already and that she was just taking them to confirm. I think that is what is implied. I could be wrong. She could have just found a pack of them and was like, all right, here's 6 of them. I'm just going to go ahead and pee on all of them, which very well could be the case. But I did love her performance, and I know there's been a lot of criticism around Isabella Merced, but I really don't feel like that's been warranted. I feel like she's been really good as Dina so far, and I almost feel like she's been better than the game version. So I don't know if you two feel the same, but Kyle, I said this yesterday when we watched it. I said that it was very telling that a lot of the behind the scenes focused on Jeffrey Wright and Isabella Merced instead of Bella Ramsey. I thought that was their way of saying this was more her episode than it was Ellie's.
Yeah, dude. Dina was awesome in this episode. Dude, every scene, bro, she was a badass. When they were getting attacked, man, she just started popping dudes left and right. And Ellie had a great meme that has been making its rounds on Twitter. A couple of them, actually. But that one was great. That one was funny as shit. I'm not going to lie.
It's funny because you can pinpoint the exact frame when that meme happens. You can pinpoint it exactly.
It's so bad. But Dina was just, dude, cold as a motherfucker. And then when she saw that Ellie got bit, dude, the emotion. I was impressed. I was really impressed with the emotion behind that scene from, both actresses, honestly. But, man, dude, it's and I know that this is getting highlighted because obviously later on it's going to just end up becoming Ellie. And she will be the highlight of the episodes, but I'm glad that they let her have a little bit more kick-ass moments in the show than they did in the game. That was one change that I think I enjoyed.
Yeah, I can agree. There is one scene, before we get into criticism, there is one scene that I want to dive into specifically, and obviously it's the guitar store scene, or the music store scene. I had mixed feelings about the scene because I really enjoyed about 80% of it, and I want to say specifically this, right? I appreciate, one, that Bella Ramsey knows how to play guitar. I appreciate that. Like they dive into that behind the scenes. I appreciate that. And I appreciate her having the guts to try to sing Take On Me by Aha. I say try, that's a bad way to put it. I appreciate her singing it and putting in that effort because they very easily could have just dubbed in Ashley Williams singing, or Ashley Johnson singing it. My God, good Lord. You would think I've never played these games. Ashley Johnson singing it. They could have very well just dubbed that in and just said, hey, Bella, we're going to have you, mouth it We're going to have you try to lip sync to it. We're going to do a few takes so we can get the best one. But they had her actually sing, and I appreciate that. And Kyle, you touched on it, and I have to hit on this again. The emotional range that Isabella Merced acts with, both in the scene where Ellie is bitten and when she has to deal with it, and then this scene as well, the emotional range is impressive. Like, it is awesome. Like, Isabella Merced had her breakout movie, I think, with Alien Romulus. But this, I feel like this episode could be a real jumping off point as well for her in terms of showing off her acting range as well. I love that. Matt, what were your thoughts on the scene? There was one thing that I pointed out that stuck out to me. I pointed out to both of you.
Yeah.
And I will get to that in a second. What were your overall thoughts on this scene and how it compares to the game?
Well, just from what I remember from the game, I got a trophy from that. Actually, I think that they did a fantastic job getting it from the scene, getting the scene from the game with the show. Honestly, I think one thing that I really loved about the scene with the show is because we are using, actors and they are able to convey, emotions on their faces. Is like we already know that, Dina has a bit of a crush on Ellie, but I think it's that moment where she sees her playing the guitar and she's singing. Like this is the first time that she sees Ellie for who, like human. She's not aggressive. She's not angry. She's not being sarcastic. She's just sitting there playing the guitar and singing the song. And, I love the fact that Isabel was able to convey that whole, that moment from just seeing Ellie for Ellie, but then seeing Ellie as so much more than that, because this is their relationship. And I was so happy that they pulled it off. Now, for the game, I mean... Yeah, it's been so long since I played it. Like, I mean, it played out exactly as I remember it, but I'm probably missing something if you have a different, take on it.
No, I think that it's very, very similar. Like, I know that the dialogue isn't exactly the same. The lines aren't exactly the same, but that's something, I could live with the show version. Like, I think the show version is fine in that regard. Like, I don't have an issue with that at all. I think that the scene does a really good job of capturing that moment where Dina realizes that Ellie is the one that she really cares about. I do think that in the game, that moment is more the party where they have that kiss, and then the moment when they find Eugene's weed, where they do a little bit more than kiss. But but I do feel like in terms of the show, capturing that moment where Dina realizes, no, this is how I feel. I do think they captured that very, very well. And that was not an issue for me at all. The issue that I had with this scene, and I said this to both of you, and I think all three of us feel the same.
Yes.
I hate to say it, but while I appreciate Bella Ramsey's effort, her accent is very distracting. It's very, very, very distracting.
Yes.
If you go back and you watch it, and I wasn't looking for it the first time we watched it, but I heard it immediately. You can hear her accent, and that's really through no fault of her own. There's not really a ton that you can do about that as an actor or an actress, but it was kind of distracting, and I hated that because it took away from what was a really, really good scene. And that, once I noticed it and once I heard it, I couldn't really unhear it. And I don't know, you both can tell me. Kyle, you can tell me first, and then Matt, you can go after him. Tell me, do you think I'm off base, or was it distracting the moment you noticed it?
Yeah, honestly, like you said, I do appreciate her putting in the effort, but low-key, the accent was really distracting, and I would have opted to just take it out entirely.
Wow.
Sorry.
Wow. Okay.
Hey, listen. Hey, it's honesty, and I can't hate on it.
I'm just saying,
honest.
because it was either that or we listened. I mean, I don't want to just say, well, put Ashley Johnson's voice in there because, it's kind of rude. And I don't know, I appreciate what they were going for, but I have to be completely honest, I did not like the scene hardly at all compared to the way it was in the game. I just didn't enjoy it that much. I thought they did it way better in the game. Maybe it's just Bella Ramsey, and I just cannot stop looking at her as Part 1 Ellie. My God, they should have recasted her. But, it felt so off. And maybe it was because of her singing, but like I don't know, the way they did it in the game, I felt like it was a little bit more genuine.
Wow, I was not expecting you to
definitely wasn't.
feel completely different. Wow, hey, fair enough. I'm not critical of that, but Matt, what about you with regards to the accent specifically? Did that impact how it went for you at all?
Honestly, no, it didn't really bother me because, well, I can't really hear that well anyway.
Yeah, that is true. I probably should have thought of that. That is true.
I mean, no, I did notice it, but the thing is, I'm fairly used to British actors who, when they do roles, they have a more American accent, especially with like Tom Holland being one of them. But then it's like when I heard Tom Holland sing, I heard that British accent coming out, and I didn't really think anything of it. And I guess I felt the same way with Bella here. Like I didn't really think of it, Yeah, her accent was noticeable, but I wasn't thinking about it. It didn't bother me that much.
I think why it stuck out to me is that I do think that there's only so much that she can do to control that. But at the same time, you mentioned Tom Holland. I
Yeah,
think that there's also plenty of examples in TV shows or movies or whatever.
like Hugh
There's
Jackman.
Hugh Jackman is a great example. Like you would never know, that he wasn't American. You
Oh,
would
he's
never know because he is, he's able to cover it up really well. One that I was going to say, because I'm never going to get to mention this show on Side Mission ever again, unless we do a review of it, me and Matt. But the first one that came to mind for me, as stupid as it may sound, Felix Mallard from Ginny and Georgia, who plays Marcus in Ginny and Georgia. He is Australian, and you would never know based on the show. You would never know because he covers it up really, really well, and his American accent is really good. So I think that that's why it stuck out to me, is that I don't want to just, rake her over the coals for it. But we've also seen a lot of examples of actors and actresses being able to cover that up. So that, for me, was why it was so distracting. Now, we do need to dive into, because Kyle mentioned it, we do need to dive into criticisms. And again, I said I had no major gripes with this episode. I do have a gripe, but it's not necessarily with just this episode. It's with how... trying to think of the right way to word it. It's with how Ellie has been written and how she's been portrayed this entire season thus far. And that's that what Kyle said is true. This is very much still part 1 Ellie, and this does not feel like part 2 Ellie at all. And I think part of it is on Bella Ramsey. I think a big, big part of it is on the directing and the writing. Because they're ultimately telling her what they want, she is doing it. So part of it goes on her, a big part of it goes on the directing and the writing, and the big issue in this episode is her reaction to the news that Dina is pregnant. And it is because it is the exact opposite of the game. In the game, for those who don't know, which if you're listening to this and you don't know, wow, first of all. But I'm just saying we are a video game podcast, so if you don't know, that's kind of impressive at this point. But in the game, she has a very vile and hateful reaction to it. She's very much like, why didn't you tell me? You've known for a few weeks. We could have gone back. Dana tells her she doesn't want to be a burden. And Ellie says, well, you're a burden now, aren't you? And it's a very hateful and angry reaction to it. And what do they do here? I don't know that I can use the words without us kidding. Well, no, we're not age restricted. We're explicit. They finger bang. And I'm sorry, but that is not how part 2 Ellie reacted at all. That is not how she reacted. They did the exact opposite. And I'm sorry, but the whole point of that scene in the game is it's a very real reaction of Ellie is on a revenge quest for Joel. That is all she cares about. And now in her eyes, the person that she's been traveling with has compromised that.
Yeah.
In the show, I'll be honest, I can't tell that they're going for revenge. I can't tell at all that they are in Seattle trying to get revenge. You could almost tell me, no, they're in Seattle looking for supplies for Jackson, and I would believe that. But here, Kyle, because of that reaction, Joel's death almost feels like an afterthought at this point. And that's the whole driving force to why they leave Jackson to begin with.
Yeah, I gotta say, I cannot stand the writing for Ellie, especially post Joel, because, like you said, it's the entire driving force for the game, and should be for the season. Ellie should not be smiling, laughing, making jokes. None of that shit. Because she didn't do that after Joel died. When he died, she was one emotion. Angry. The entire game, she was pissed. It bothered her to her core, dude. And I just don't see it. I don't see it at all with the way that they are writing her dialogue and her character. She's still making jokes. She's still happy. She's still smiling. Bro, she did not do that. Because she just lost Joel. Nothing could make her happy. In fact, everything kept making her more angry. And to the point where at the end of the game, she couldn't let it fucking go. And that, that was the, the ending will not have the same effect because it doesn't seem like she gives that much of a shit. I'm not gonna believe that it's still bothering her at the end of the series.
Here's the issue, right? Like, because I want to add on to that. Here's the issue that I see that they've created long term. There is a scene in the game that I'm sure we're going to see at some point in the show where she and Jesse are out on Seattle Day 3, and they hear that Tommy is out there. He wants to go help Tommy. She's like, no, we need to go after Abby. And there's this scene where she says, if you go, I'm not saving you again. And it's this really powerful scene of like her anger and her vengeance has consumed her. If we get that scene exactly like it was in the game, it's not going to be believable. It won't be believable for a second. And that's the issue, Kyle, is long term, they've written themselves into a corner that if this is how Ellie's going to act, you pretty much have to change everything.
Yeah, it really feels like Part 1 Ellie. I just keep saying that, but they just had her prepare so much for that role. They did not develop her character at all in this season, and you expect me to believe that this is 5 years later. 5 years is a long fucking time. People grow up from 14 to fucking 19, and especially after going through something like this.
Clearly not everybody.
Yeah, like, dude, after Joel's death, she was changed forever. I don't feel like it's bothering her that much at all. She hasn't even... I don't think they even mentioned it in this episode, actually.
Like, they mentioned Joel because Ellie says that, all those lessons from Joel after playing the guitar, and Dina says, he taught you well. It's, again, if you told me they were in Seattle to just get supplies and to get back to Jackson, I could believe it because it's almost like the writing and the directing, it's like they forgot why she's there. And I've said this, I think, every episode now, and I'm going to say it again. I could excuse that if the people involved knew nothing about the game. One of the main producers is the guy that created the game, is Neil Druckmann. I'm sorry, at some point, I'm going to get tired of saying that, but I'm not letting that go. I'm not letting that go that you created these games, man. You were the main writer for both games. You knew the story you wanted to tell, and for some reason, it's like he's not telling the writers anything about the game, and I feel like I've said that every episode. That looks, with each passing episode, like more and more of a mistake. Looks like more and more of an error. I don't even know, Matt, if I want to dive into the next scene where they wake up the next morning over fear of people getting offended. I really don't know, but again, I can't with this writing. That's the most basic white girl thing you're ever going to hear me say on this podcast. I cannot do this writing if they are going to have scenes like her showing Ellie all the pregnancy tests and Ellie's reaction being what it was. I'm sorry. Joke or not, it was a stupid line. It was a stupid thing to say. That is not what part 2 Ellie would have said. I'm just going to leave it at that, Matt. I'll let you go from there. I'm not going to say what the line was because I'm not going to risk offending people because at the end of the day, it ain't worth it. But it was just stupid, and it was not part 2 Ellie.
Yeah, and that's where my issue with it lies. It's not what was said, it's because of who said it. Because, to really get down to it, it's like we said, that this is Ellie. This is Ellie after losing Joel. This is Ellie who doesn't care about anything except for getting revenge and killing Abby. I mean, when she said the line, and I'm just going to go ahead and say it, when she said, "I'm going to be a dad," I literally looked at you. I looked at everybody in the room that we were watching it with, and I was just like, no.
Well, fellas, we just got canceled. Thanks, Matt.
No, I'm just saying, Ellie does not say that. She wouldn't say that. Last of Us Part 2, Ellie would not say that. We know what she would say because she said it in the game. It's been done. They completely rewrote that whole entire scene to make it seem more, like a bright moment, and this whole entire plot of like death and revenge and everything. Like they try to make it light of it, and it just does not work because we know Ellie.
It's very much in the game. To add on to that, I'm sorry to cut you off. It's very much in the game. It's treated like some adversity they're going to have to overcome. It's treated like, because now Ellie has to go out on her own instead of, because she doesn't want to risk Dina's life, and obviously she knows that Dina is going to slow her down. It's treated like an obstacle in the game. Here, it's treated like it's a bright and shining moment.
Yep.
That, and I want to jump in here too. My biggest issue also was that because she was like, I'm going to be a dad, it's not so much, I mean, the line was very stupid, don't get me wrong, but I think the biggest issue for me comes from Ellie didn't give a shit about that baby. Because
no, not at all.
It was her, it was Dina's and Jesse's, and Dina didn't even say anything about Ellie. Like, and obviously we can talk about other stuff later, next season. But like, if they do all that, I honestly don't know what the fuck they're gonna do. But like, it was not Ellie's baby at all. They didn't give a shit until later on, and like that whole part makes sense later on. But right now, it was Dina and Jesse's, and Ellie didn't even want to be in the kid's life. She was like, you need to go back. Ellie in the show was like, we'll get through this together. Ellie in the game didn't give a fuck. She said, get out of here. She said, you are a liability. Why in the show is it the complete opposite reaction to where she's like, I'll help you get through it? Like, so are we going to do something different now? Because I'm just going to go ahead and fucking say it in the game. She goes back. Is she not going to go back now? Is she gonna,
what you're talking about, like literally at the end of the game, like sure, like she shows that she cares about JJ, but she doesn't care enough to not go back after Abby. She doesn't care enough to not go and leave Dina and this kid to go after Abby. So is that going to change all of a sudden?
Man, I hope not, but I'm like, dude, it's just, the writing is so weird. Like, and this is a big issue that I think I'm just going to have with the entire season. It's that they did the first season so well. They did it so good, in fact, that they even added the DLC as an episode and pulled it off without letting the season overstay its welcome. In fact, they could have probably had another episode. It was kind of short. But it covered the entire first game. From start to finish, we had every major moment. There were so many scenes that people were comparing to the game because they were like, look at how, similar this is. They tried to reenact it one for one. I love that because I love the game. And so making it live action, I think, is the closest thing to people who are interested in putting in 40 hours on a PlayStation game are going to get to experiencing this great story. I would have liked to see them do that with Season 2. Do a 1-for-1. Do not make your own story. Do not change the story. I think, personally, and I have no knowledge, my personal opinion on why Neil Druckmann changed a lot of stuff is because of the backlash the game got. I think he should not give a shit about the backlash that the game got and double down with the show.
I will say this because I agree 100% with that, and I think we've just about touched on everything. Obviously, I'll give Matt his chance to prove me wrong here in a minute or two. But what you said is spot on. That listening to fans is not inherently a bad thing. Hearing feedback is not inherently a bad thing. But when you cave to it, that's when you've gone wrong. I'm going to use an example because I think this is the main reason why this movie did not succeed. The way that Disney caved to Star Wars fans with Rise of Skywalker. The way they caved after the backlash to Last Jedi when they basically benched Kelly Marie Tran and then went back to the Bloodline storyline of, Rey is, a significant offspring of another major Star Wars character. The way they caved to all that is why I think that movie has the issues it does. If they had just said, hey, we're going to roll with what happened in Last Jedi and we're going to go from there, I think that movie could have been significantly better. And I do think that that's very true here, is that if you're going to sterilize the story, that sure, it split the fan base. Half the fan base was not a huge fan of, but the other half of the fan base really enjoyed. Why not cater to the ones that enjoyed it and just roll with that versus trying to appease the other 50% and burning the other half? To me, you made the wrong choice here. You catered to the wrong fans that, I'm sorry, and Kyle, you've said this before, and I want to give you your flowers for it. If you thought that the story of Last of Us Part 2 was poorly written because Joel died and because Abby didn't die at the end, you're an idiot. You're an idiot, and the story was too smart for you. It's that simple. Like, I hate to simplify it down that much, but that is the truth. You are an idiot if you thought it was bad writing for those two reasons. You're dumb. It's that simple. But I hate the idea that he caved, because through 4 episodes, it very much looks like he did. It very much looks like he did. Again, I want to emphasize, I really enjoyed this episode. This is my favorite one of the season so far. I loved it. Thought a lot of it was great. But the problems that are persisting in Season 2 are not getting better. And at this point, with 3 episodes left, we have no reason to believe it's going to get better before the end of the season. So, Matt, as we always do, I know you probably have something else to add, so I will leave the floor to you before we wrap it up.
Honestly, no, I don't really have anything else to add. Like, we pretty much all here.
Fuck you.
Hey,
I give you the floor.
I know you're giving me the floor.
I give you the floor. You turn 43 and all of a sudden you want to behave. That's insane to me. Anyway.
I am 33 with a 3, like Expedition 33. Thank you.
Just so you, by the way, the review of that is coming soon, and I think that Matt and I are going to have a lot of fun on that episode because that game is fantastic. So we're going to have a lot of fun on that episode for sure. But nonetheless, it was a really good episode. We all enjoyed it. To summarize everything, Season 2 has just got a lot of issues, and I think we're all 3 concerned that it's just not going to get better at this point. So that is going to do it for this episode of Side Mission. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at Side Mission Pod. You can check us out on Facebook as well at Side Mission Podcast. For the boys, for Kyle, for Matt, I'm Rusty. Thanks for listening.